The dusty plains of modern Iraq hide secrets written in clay thousands of years ago. These are the records of the Sumerians, the first great civilization. Before the stars were named or the rivers began to flow, they believed a cosmic tension existed. Scholars translate wedge-shaped characters that describe a time when the universe was a chaotic void of salt water and fresh currents. This is not just mythology. It is a detailed account of the moments preceding the birth of the world. In the silent rooms of the British Museum, these ancient tablets whisper of the Enuma Elish and the struggle between order and primordial chaos. We are looking at the very blueprints of existence as seen through the eyes of the earliest scribes. Today we peel back the layers of history to witness the final events before the dawn of creation began. The world is not yet a world. It is a state of being that defies the modern imagination, a period of absolute stasis that predates the concept of time itself. In the quiet darkness of the beginning, there is only one presence. She is Namu, the primeval sea. She is the mother who gave birth to the heavens and the earth, but in this moment she is alone. There are no shores to contain her, no sun to warm her depths, and no wind to disturb the glassy perfection of her surface. To look upon the universe at this stage is to look upon an infinite expanse of water, a dark and heavy liquid that holds within it the potential for every life that will ever be lived. The Sumerian scribes, working in the dust of the Fertile Crescent thousands of years ago, did not view the beginning as a void of nothingness. To them the beginning was a fullness. It was the presence of a vast, salty and ancient ocean that had no beginning and no end. On the cuneiform tablets recovered from the ruins of cities like Nippur and Uar, the name of Namu appears as the origin point of all divinity. She is described in the earliest texts as the mother who gave birth to the sky and the ground, yet before that moment of division she exists in a state of profound silence. This is the era before the first breath, a time when the cosmic order is nothing more than a dream held in the depths of the salt water. Imagine the weight of that silence. It is not the silence of an empty room, but the heavy, pressurized silence of the deep ocean. In this pre-creation reality, there is no sound because there is no medium for sound to travel through other than the water itself. There is no friction, no movement, and no conflict. The Sumerian worldview suggests that this period of stasis lasted for an eternity. The gods who would later rule the cities of Mesopotamia, the fierce Enlil and the wise Enki, are not even whispers in the dark. They are dormant possibilities, microscopic seeds waiting for the first stirring of the mother. The tablets tell us that Namu is self-begotten. She did not require a father or a creator to bring her into being. She simply is. This is a radical departure from the later traditions that would dominate the Near East, where male deities often take the primary role in shaping the cosmos. In the Sumerian understanding, the feminine principle of the water is the absolute foundation. She is the womb of the universe. When we examine the linguistic roots of her name in the ancient Sumerian tongue, we find connections to the word for the sea and the word for a mother. She is the liquid environment from which all complexity must eventually emerge. In the excavations of the 19th and 20th centuries, archaeologists uncovered thousands of clay fragments that speak to this primordial era. These tablets, often broken and worn by the passage of millennia, describe a state of the universe where the elements were fused together. The earth and the sky were not separate entities but were joined in a single, massive mountain called the Enki. This mountain existed within the body of Namu. The sky, which the Sumerians called In, and the earth, which they called Ki, were locked in a permanent embrace, submerged beneath the waves of the primeval ocean. There was no room between them for air, for light, or for life. This condition of the fused heaven and earth creates a tension that defines the final moments before creation begins. It is a period of immense pressure. The weight of the salt water presses down on the mountain of Enki, keeping the universe in a state of suspended animation. The scribes described this as a time when the fates were not yet determined. The divine laws that govern the functioning of the world, were still hidden in the depths. There was no law for the rising of the sun because there was no sun. There was no law for the flowing of the rivers because the rivers had not yet been carved into the clay of the earth. The documentary evidence found in the Great Library of Ashurbanipal, though dating to a later period, echoes these much older Sumerian beliefs. It speaks of a time when the heavens had not been named and the earth below had not been called by a name. In the ancient mind, to name a thing was to give it existence. In the silence of Namu, nothing has a name. There is no language, no poetry, and no prayer. There is only the rhythmic, eternal pulsing of the tide in a world that has no moon to pull it. As we look closer at the cuneiform inscriptions, we find hints of what triggered the end of this silence. It was not a sudden explosion or a violent war as seen in later mythologies. Instead, the Sumerian tablets suggest a slow awakening. Within the fused mountain of Enki, the first of the great gods began to stir. This was Enlil, the god of the air and the storm. His birth within the cramped space between his mother and father represented the first movement of expansion. He is the breath that needs to be exhaled. He is the force that will eventually push the sky away from the earth, creating the space for the atmosphere. But before Enlil can act, we must understand the environment of his gestation. The tablets describe the Abzu, the deep freshwater abyss that exists beneath the salt water of Namu. This is a place of profound mystery. While Namu is the salty sea of the exterior, the Abzu is the sweet water of the interior. In the Sumerian mind, the mixing of these waters is the catalyst for all biological and divine life. It is the intersection of the two types of water that creates the first vibration in the silence. The stillness of Namu begins to tremble as the freshwater of the Abzu starts to move beneath the mountain of the sky and the earth. This movement is the first sign that the era of silence is coming to an end. It is the final event before the dawn of the first day. The tablets tell us that Namu, the mother of all, felt the stirring within her. She felt the pressure of the gods who wanted to be born. She felt the weight of the sky wanting to rise and the earth wanting to settle. Yet she did not resist. The Sumerian accounts portray her as a benevolent and passive source, a mother who provides the space and the substance for her children to grow, even if their growth means the end of her absolute reign over the darkness. The transition from this state of total watery immersion to the world of form is a central theme of the tablets found at the site of Eridu, considered by the Sumerians to be the oldest city in the world. The priests of Eridu believed that their city was built directly over the Abzu, the very place where the silence first began to break. They looked at the marshes of the Tigris and Euphrates and saw a reflection of the primordial world. The way the reeds emerged from the mud and the water gave them a physical metaphor for how the world was formed. Just as the silt settles to create land, the Sumerians believed that the physical universe settled out of the body of Namu. This period of the silence is crucial because it sets the stage for everything that follows. In the Sumerian view, the universe was not created from nothing, but was organized out of a pre-existing chaos that was actually a form of perfect, unmanifested order. Namu represents that order. She is the total potential. Every star, every mountain, every human soul, and every blade of grass is already present within her, but they are dissolved like salt in water. The process of creation is not the act of making something new, but the act of pulling things out of the solution, of giving them form and boundary. As the final moments of the silence approach, the tension reaches a breaking point. The gods within the mountain of Enki are no longer content to remain in the dark. They crave the light that does not yet exist. They crave the space to move and the air to breathe. The tablets describe a sense of cosmic anticipation. The water of Namu, which has been still for an eternity, begins to swirl. The first currents are formed. The first waves lap against the submerged peaks of the world mountain. The silence is about to be shattered by the first sound ever heard in the universe, the sound of the separation of the heavens and the earth. We find ourselves at the precipice of history. Behind us lies the infinite dark ocean of the Mother, a realm of peace and total unity. Ahead of us lies the world of division, of light and shadow, of life and death. The Sumerian tablets serve as our only map of this transition. They reveal that before the first city was built, before the first king was crowned, and before the first word was written, there was a mother who waited in the dark. She is the silence of the beginning, the deep breath taken before the first word is spoken. In the next stage of our journey, we will witness the violent and beautiful moment when this silence is broken. We will see how the air god Enlil forced his way into the world and how the goddess Namo reacted when her children finally opened their eyes in the dark. The era of the sea is ending, and the era of the gods is about to begin. The tablets are clear. The dawn did not come with a whimper, but with the massive, grinding shift of the universe itself as it prepared to breathe for the very first time. The silence is absolute. Before the first sunrise, before the first drop of rain touched the soil of Mesopotamia, there is a state of being that defies modern comprehension. The ancient Sumerian scribes, pressing their reed styluses into damp clay in the city-states of Nippur and Ur, speak of a time when the universe is a singular, suffocating entity. They call this state Enki. In the linguistic tradition of the Sumerians, this is not merely a combination of two names. It is a description of a physical reality where the sky and the earth are locked in an eternal, motionless embrace. There is no space between them. There is no air to breathe. There is no light to see. To look upon the tablets that describe this era is to look upon the oldest maps of the human psyche. These artifacts, many of which now sit under the soft glow of museum spotlights in London and Paris, tell us that the beginning was not a void of nothingness. For the Sumerians, the beginning was a state of excessive togetherness. We see the name and the Sky Father represented by the sign for a star. It signifies the high heavens, the infinite blue, and the ultimate authority of the cosmos. Beneath him and inseparable from him is Ki, the Earth Mother. She is the foundation, the dark soil, and the potential for all life. In the time before time they are one. The documentary record etched into the clay suggests that this union is a cosmic mountain. They call it the Hersak. This mountain is not a feature on a map but the world itself. Its base is the earth and its peak is the sky, but there is no atmosphere between the two. Imagine a world where the solid ground and the ceiling of the heavens are pressed together like the pages of a closed book. There is no room for a bird to fly. There is no room for a tree to grow. There is no room even for the gods themselves to stand upright. This is the primal state of the universe, a heavy, dense, and static existence that has lasted for an eternity of uncounted years. The scribes described this period with a sense of profound weight. The tablets tell us that in this era, the universe is pregnant with possibility, yet paralyzed by its own unity. Life exists only as a dream or a seed buried deep within the fusion of an Enki. There is no movement because there is no space for motion. There is no change because there is no time. The Sumerian vision of pre-creation is one of total stillness. It is a cosmic stasis where the masculine energy of the heavens and the feminine energy of the earth are so perfectly balanced and so tightly bound that nothing can ever happen. As we examine the cuneiform scripts found in the ruins of the temple libraries, we find that the Sumerians believed the first inhabitants of this cramped, dark world were the Anunnaki. In this early stage, these are not the powerful kings of the air and earth we see in later myths. Instead, they are the elder gods, the primordial forces dwelling within the very marrow of the cosmic mountain. They exist in the darkness, waiting in the narrow gaps between the sky and the earth. They are the personifications of the elements that have not yet been allowed to express themselves. They are the heat in the stone and the moisture in the clouds, yet they cannot separate. The tablets reveal a fascinating philosophical concept. For the people of the Tigris and Euphrates valleys, the act of creation was not about making something from nothing. It was about the act of separation. It was about creating space where there was once only density. They believed that for the world to begin, the primal embrace of an Enki had to be broken. This unity, while sacred and perfect in its own way, was a prison for the potential of life. The sky had to be lifted and the earth had to be pushed down. Consider the physical reality of these tablets. These are small, palm-sized pieces of earth that have survived for 5,000 years. When a modern scholar brushes the dust from a newly discovered fragment, they are often reading about this very transition. One specific text, often referred to as the debate between summer and winter, begins by recounting these earliest days. It states that when the heavens had been moved away from the earth, and the earth had been separated from the heavens, only then could the name of man be fixed. This implies that humanity was not even a thought until the Great Division occurred. But why were they joined in the first place? The Sumerian tradition suggests that the union of an Enki was the natural state of the primeval sea, Namu. Namu is the mother who gave birth to the sky and the earth. In the deepest layers of the Sumerian creation story, before even the cosmic mountain existed, there was only the infinite watery abyss of the primordial goddess. She is the one who birthed the mountain of heaven and earth. In this stage of the story, we see a universe that is entirely feminine, a vast ocean of potential energy that eventually solidifies into the united form of an Enki. The imagery used in the tablets is vividly organic. The union of sky and earth is described in terms of a marriage, a physical bonding that is both beautiful and terrifying in its scale. The sky father and covers the earth mother, Ki, completely. There is a sense of cosmic claustrophobia in the writing. The gods who dwell within this union are described as being in a state of mourning or yearning. They are the children of the universe, trapped in the womb of their parents, unable to be born because the parents will not let go of one another. This is where the Sumerian story takes a dramatic turn. Within this dark, compressed space, a new force begins to stir. This is Enlil, the god of the air and the wind. In the cuneiform records, Enlil is the son of an Enki. He is the breath of the universe. While his parents represent the solid and the infinite, Enlil represents the movement and the space. He is born between them in the microscopic gap where the sky meets the soil. As he grows, the tension within the cosmic mountain reaches a breaking point. The tablets describe Enlil as the lord of the air, the one who brings the north wind and the storm. But in the pre-creation era, he is the expander. He is the force that begins to push upward against the weight of his father, and downward against the foundation of his mother, Ki. This is not a peaceful process. The Sumerians do not describe a gentle awakening. They describe a violent, grinding struggle. The separation of the heavens and the earth is the first great labor of the universe. It is the moment when the static perfection of the past is shattered to make way for the dynamic chaos of life. We must imagine the scale of this event through the eyes of the ancient observers. To them, every mountain range was a reminder of this original mountain. Every gust of wind was a reminder of Enlil, the god who gave them the room to breathe. The separation of an Enki is the most significant event in the Sumerian timeline because it represents the birth of duality. Before this, there was only the one. After this, there is light and dark, high and low, male and female, life and death. The physical tablets themselves are a testament to this duality. The wedge-shaped marks are pressed into the clay, creating a landscape of peaks and valleys on a miniature scale. The scribes who recorded these events were not just writing stories. They were documenting the physics of their world. They were explaining why the rain falls from the sky and why the plants grow from the ground. It is because the sky and the earth are still trying to reach for one another, separated by the very air that we breathe. In the libraries of ancient Mesopotamia, these stories were kept as sacred knowledge. They were studied by priests and kings who believed that by understanding the primal embrace and the subsequent separation, they could understand the balance of the world. They saw the universe as a delicate structure held apart by the gods. If the gods were to ever abandon their posts, the Sumerians feared that the sky would fall and the earth would rise, returning the world to the dark, suffocating unity of an Enki. As the narrative on the tablets progresses, we see the moment of the great separation approach. The air begins to swirl in the darkness. The roots of the cosmic mountain begin to tremble. The union that has lasted for an eternity is about to be broken by its own offspring. The tablets tell us that this is the exact moment when the history of the world truly begins. Everything before this was merely the prelude. The embrace of heaven and earth was the state of the universe in its infancy, asleep without dreams. Now, the universe is about to wake up, and the cost of that awakening is the eternal distance between the Father in the stars and the Mother in the soil. The texts are clear that this separation was necessary. Without it, there could be no grain, no sheep, no cities, and no civilization. The Sumerian poets speak of Enlil with a mixture of awe and gratitude. He is the divider who made life possible. He is the one who carved the space in which the drama of existence could unfold. But even as they celebrate the separation, there is a lingering sense of loss in the cuneiform lines. The perfect unity of the beginning is gone forever. The world is now a place of fragments, a place where everything is defined by its distance from something else. This segment of the Sumerian tablets leaves us on the precipice of the greatest change in the history of existence. The cosmic mountain is cracking. The air is expanding. The silent, dark embrace of an Enki is being torn apart by the very life they created. We are witnessing the end of the primordial era and the birth of the world we recognize. The tablets are no longer describing a static state of being. They are now describing a process of becoming. The stage is set for the sky to ascend to the highest heights and for the earth to become the fertile garden of the gods. The first breath of the world is about to be taken. In the absolute beginning there is no distance. There is no horizon to gaze upon and no path to follow. The cosmos exists as a singular, suffocating unity. This is the era of the mountain of heaven and earth, a primordial mass where the sky god En and the earth goddess Ki are locked in an eternal physical embrace. To our modern eyes, this state is inconceivable. There is no light between them because there is no space for light to travel. There is no air because there is no volume to contain it. The entire universe is a solid, motionless block of potential. The Sumerian scribes, writing on clay in the flickering light of oil lamps thousands of years ago, described this as a time of darkness and heavy silence. Within this crushing union, however, a new force begins to stir. This is Enlil. He is the son of the sky and the earth, yet he is unlike either of his parents. While En represents the distant, unchanging heights and Ki represents the solid, enduring foundation, Enlil is the embodiment of movement. He is the breath, the wind, and the spirit of expansion. He is the middle ground that does not yet exist. As Enlil grows within the narrow, pressurized gap between his parents, his very nature demands room. He is the first manifestation of individuality in a world of total sameness. The tablets suggest that his birth is not a quiet event but a fundamental disruption of the cosmic order. He is the tension that precedes the snap. He is the pressure that builds within a seed before it bursts through the soil. The mythic narrative reaches a point of inevitable crisis. The union of an Enki, which has lasted for an eternity of eons, can no longer hold the vibrant power of the air god. Then comes the moment of the great severing. With a force that transcends the physical and enters the realm of the metaphysical, Enlil pushes. He thrusts his shoulders against the weight of his father, the sky, and plants his feet firmly upon the body of his mother, the earth. It is an act of divine violence and supreme necessity. The bond that has defined the universe since the dawn of time begins to fracture. We must imagine the sound of this moment, a cosmic groan that echoes through the newly forming void as the sky is ripped away from the earth. As Enlil stands tall, the sky retreats upward, ascending into the high, cold reaches of the celestial realm. The earth settles downward, becoming the heavy, fertile floor of the world. For the first time there is a between. This is the birth of space. This is the creation of the atmosphere, the Lil, from which Enlil takes his name. The vacuum is suddenly filled with the rushing of wind, the first movement of air in a universe that had previously been static. The narrator observes that this separation is the foundational act of the Sumerian universe. Without the severing there can be no life. Life requires the gap. It requires the space for rain to fall from the sky to the earth. It requires the room for the sun to move from east to west. It requires the air for lungs to breathe. Enlil, by separating his parents, becomes the architect of the habitable world. He is the lord of the air, the one who maintains the distance that allows all other things to exist. But the separation is not merely a physical distancing of two celestial bodies. It is the establishment of the cosmic order, the me. These are the divine decrees, the fundamental laws that govern the behavior of the universe. With the creation of space, the me begin to flow into the world like a river. They define how the seasons will turn, how the rivers will flow, and how the gods will interact with one another. Enlil becomes the guardian of these laws. He sits at the center of the world in the city of Nippur, which the Sumerians believe is the exact point where heaven and earth were once joined. In Nippur, Enlil establishes his temple, the Ikur. The name translates to mountain house. It is a symbolic representation of that original primordial mountain, a permanent reminder of the great severing. This temple is more than a building, it is the Durin key, the bond of heaven and earth. Even though An and Ki are now separated by the vastness of the atmosphere, they remain connected through this umbilical cord of stone and spirit. Enlil stands at the crossroads, the mediator between the high divine will of his father and the physical reality of his mother. The tablets reveal that once the space is cleared, Enlil does not remain idle. He is a god of action and industry. He looks upon the raw, empty earth and begins the work of preparation. The landscape is still desolate, a plain of mud and shadow. To transform this void into a garden, Enlil creates a specific tool, an instrument that appears again and again in the oldest Sumerian hymns. It is the hoe. This may seem like a humble object for a supreme deity, but to the Sumerians, the hoe is a weapon of civilization. It represents the power to reshape the earth, to dig the canals that will carry the life-giving waters of the Tigris and Euphrates, and to build the foundations of the first cities. Enlil fashions the hoe from gold and silver, giving it a head of lapis lazuli. He uses it to break the hard crust of the earth, making it ready for the seeds of life. The air is now thick with potential. The great severing has created the theater, and Enlil has prepared the stage. Yet the world is still lonely. The gods move through the new spaces, but there is no one to witness their glory and no one to provide for their needs. The sun, moon, and stars are being set into their tracks, beginning the long march of time. The rhythm of the universe is starting to beat, but it is a rhythm without an audience. As we look at the inscriptions, we see a world in transition. The raw, violent energy of the separation is cooling into a structured reality. The winds of Enlil are no longer a chaotic storm but a steady breeze that carries the scents of the distant mountains. The sky has become a deep, dark blue, a canopy of infinite depth wherein dwells in silent majesty. The earth has become a solid, brown expanse, waiting for the first touch of green. The Great Severing teaches us about the Sumerian view of the soul and the cosmos. They do not see the world as something that was created from nothing. Instead, they see it as something that was carved out of a pre-existing whole. Creation is an act of differentiation. It is the process of taking one thing and making it many. It is the movement from the darkness of the womb into the light of the day. Enlil stands as the bridge between these states. He is the ruler of the middle air, the king of the winds who can be both gentle and devastating. He is the one who decides the fate of the land. In the quiet moments after the separation, the silence is different than it was before. It is no longer the silence of non-existence. It is the silence of anticipation. The atmosphere is charged with the weight of what is coming. The tablets describe Enlil looking out over the vast, empty plains. He has created the space, he has established the laws, and he has fashioned the tools. The architecture of the universe is complete. But a house is not a home until it is inhabited. The Great Severing has provided the room, but now that room must be filled. The divine council, the Anunnaki, begin to gather in the Ikur, their voices echoing through the halls of the mountain house. They debate the future of this new realm. They look down at the fertile soil and the flowing waters, and they realize that the work of the gods is only just beginning. The separation of an Enki is the ultimate act of liberation. It frees the sky to be the sky and the earth to be the earth. It creates the duality of up and down, light and dark, spirit and matter. It is the necessary trauma that precedes all growth. As the first light of the newly separated sun begins to crest the horizon, the shadows stretch long across the Mesopotamian plain. The world is open. The world is wide. And the wind of Enlil carries the first whispers of a new kind of existence. The tablets tell us that the gods themselves are now subject to the very space and time they have created. They must walk the earth or fly through the heavens. They must wait for the seasons to change. They are no longer part of a single, undifferentiated mass but individuals with roles and responsibilities. The order of the universe is firm, but it is also fragile, requiring the constant attention of the Lord of the Air to keep the sky from falling and the earth from rising back into that ancient, suffocating embrace. This is the state of the world as the final events before the creation of humanity unfold. The stage is set with precision and grandeur. The winds are blowing, the rivers are ready to flow, and the gods are poised to begin their greatest work. The great severing has changed everything, turning a static eternity into a dynamic, living history. The void is no longer empty, it is a vessel, waiting to be filled with the breath of life. The dawn breaks over a landscape that is not yet a world as we would recognize it. In this distant epoch, the earth is a raw and unrefined canvas of silt and clay. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers do not flow through gentle valleys. Instead, they are being carved into the crust of the planet by the hands of gods. These are the Igigi, the younger generation of divine beings, and for 2,500 years, they have known nothing but the relentless weight of labor. The cuneiform tablets of the Atrahasis epic describe this era as a time of supreme hardship. While the senior gods, the Anunnaki, reside in the heights of heaven and the comfort of their established temples, the Igigi are the laborers of the cosmos. They are the ones who dig the deep trenches. They are the ones who pile the mountains of earth. They are the ones who ensure that the waters of life can flow to nourish the barren soil. The heat of the Mesopotamian sun is a physical presence, a heavy mantle that presses down upon the backs of the divine workers. Their hands, once meant for the holding of celestial scepters, are now calloused and stained with the dark mud of the riverbeds. There is a profound irony in their existence. They are immortal, yet they are bound to the cycles of physical exhaustion. They are divine, yet they are treated as tools of an administrative machine. The great god Enlil, the Lord of the Air and the supreme executive of the divine council, watches from his seat of power in the Ikur, the mountain house in the city of Nippur. To Enlil, the labor is a necessity of order. The universe must be maintained. The irrigation canals must be cleared of silt. The infrastructure of existence requires constant maintenance, and the Igigi are the workforce assigned to this eternal task. But even the endurance of a god has its limits. The tablets tell us that the Igigi begin to count the years of their misery. They count the seasons of the heavy baskets. They count the decades of the copper spades biting into the stubborn earth. A low murmur begins to ripple through the work camps. It starts as a whisper in the shadows of the reed huts at night. It grows into a shared grievance that passes from one worker to another as they haul away the debris of the rivers. They speak of the unfairness of their lot. They wonder why they must toil while the Anunnaki feast and rest. The resentment is a slow-burning fire, fed by the dry timber of exhaustion and the bitter wind of perceived injustice. One night, the murmurs solidify into a plan. The Igigi decide that the time for quiet suffering is over. They resolve to confront the very source of their burden. The leader of the rebellion, whose name is lost to the fragments of time but whose spirit remains etched in the clay, rallies his brothers. He tells them that the workload is too great, that the weight of the world has become an unbearable yoke. They decide to cast down their tools. In a symbolic act of defiance that will echo through the millennia, the Igigi gather their baskets and their spades. They do not merely set them aside. They cast them into the fire. The flames that once cooked their meager rations now consume the implements of their slavery. The glow of the burning tools illuminates the dark plains of Sumer, a signal fire of revolution that marks the end of the old order. The rebellious host begins its march. They move through the night like a tide of shadow and fire. Their destination is Nippur, the heart of the administration. Specifically, they seek the Ikur, the residents of Enlil. This is not a polite delegation or a formal petition for redress. This is a siege. The Ijiji surround the temple in the pre-dawn gloom. They carry torches that cast long, flickering shadows against the high walls of the sanctuary. The silence of the city is broken by the rhythmic chanting of the disgruntled gods. They demand an audience. They demand relief. They demand a change to the fundamental laws of the universe. Inside the Ikur, the atmosphere is one of profound peace, suddenly shattered. Enlil is asleep, resting in the quiet luxury that his status affords him. His gatekeeper, Kalkul, is the first to notice the disturbance. He looks out from the ramparts and sees the ring of fire surrounding the holy precinct. He sees the faces of the Ijiji, normally bowed in labor, now upturned in anger. Kalkul does not hesitate. He rushes to the inner chambers to wake his master. The tablets describe the urgency of the moment. Kalkul rouses Enlil, warning him that his house is surrounded, that his servants have become his captors. Enlil wakes in a state of shock and fury. He is the lord of the storm, a god of decisive action and rigid authority. To be challenged in his own home by those he considers his subordinates is an affront to the cosmic hierarchy. He calls for his weapons. He prepares to meet the mob with the violence of the tempest. However, his advisors and his fellow Anunnaki urge caution. They realize that this is not a minor skirmish. This is a systemic collapse. If the Ijiji refuse to work, the very foundation of the god's lifestyle will crumble. Without the canals there is no food. Without the labor there is no order. The high gods are summoned for an emergency council. Anu, the father of the gods, descends from the highest heaven. Enki, the wise and cunning lord of the deep waters, arrives from his subterranean realm of the Abzu. They gather in the besieged Ikur, the sound of the chanting rebels filtering through the walls like a heartbeat of impending doom. Enlil is belligerent. He demands to know who started the rebellion. He wants the ringleaders brought forward for execution. He wants the Ijiji returned to the trenches by force. But Anu, looking down from his perspective of cosmic distance, counsels a different path. He asks Enlil why he is so angry with the laborers. He points out that their grievance is legitimate. The work is indeed heavy. The burden is indeed great. Anu recognizes that the current system is unsustainable. You cannot build a stable reality on the backs of an unwilling and suffering workforce, even if that workforce is divine. The tension in the room is palpable. Enlil represents the old law, the rule of decree and unyielding command. Enki, however, represents the path of innovation and adaptation. As the debate rages within the temple, the Ijiji remain outside, their torches burning low but their resolve staying firm. They have tasted the first moments of freedom from their toil, and they will not return to the mud of the Euphrates willingly. The standoff creates a vacuum in the creative process of the universe. The rivers are stagnant. The earth is still. The final events before the creation of humanity are unfolding not in a moment of peaceful inspiration, but in a crisis of labor and a clash of divine wills. Enki, the god of wisdom, watches and listens. He is the master of the crafts and the weaver of solutions. He understands that a new element is needed, something that can bridge the gap between the divine need for order and the physical reality of labor. He begins to formulate a plan that will change the nature of existence forever. He looks at the clay of the earth, the very substance the Ijiji have been struggling with for centuries, and he sees a potential that no one else has considered. The tablets tell us that the negotiation is a turning point in history. The Anunnaki realize they cannot simply kill the rebels, for then there would be no one to do the work. They cannot do the work themselves, for that would violate their nature as the elite of the cosmos. A third way must be found. It is here, in the shadow of the Ikur, amidst the smoke of burning tools and the shouts of angry gods, that the blueprint for the human race begins to take shape. The Ijiji have refused to be the slaves of the universe. Their rebellion is the catalyst that forces the hand of the creators. The scene is one of high drama. Enlil, red-faced and trembling with suppressed rage, eventually concedes that the labor must be reassigned. But the question remains, to whom? There are no other beings in existence capable of such a task. The animals of the field and the fish of the sea cannot dig canals or manage the flow of the great rivers. The solution requires a being with the intelligence of a god but the physical endurance of the earth itself. It requires a creature that can understand the commands of the Anunnaki while remaining separate from their divine ranks. The atmosphere shifts from one of confrontation to one of desperate invention. The Council of the Gods turns its attention to Enki. They ask him if he has a solution. Enki stands before the assembly, his eyes reflecting the deep and mysterious waters of his home. He speaks of a new creation, a being that will bear the yoke of the gods. He speaks of the Lulu, the primitive worker. He proposes to create a substitute, a creature made from the very clay the Ijiji have rejected, infused with a spark of the divine to give it life and purpose. The Ijiji, hearing the news of this proposal, begin to quiet their shouts. They see a path toward their own liberation. The prospect of an heir to their suffering is enough to dampen the fires of their revolt. They wait, poised between the world they have destroyed with their strike and the world that is about to be born. The transition is nearing its climax. The tools are ash, the rivers are silent, and the gods are now committed to an act of creation that was born not of love, but of necessity and the fear of a permanent strike. The stage is set for the final transformation. The materials are gathered. The wisdom of Enki is prepared. The blood of a sacrificed god is required to provide the soul for the new creature. The gravity of the moment hangs over Nippur. The rebellion of the Ijiji has ended the era of divine labor and paved the way for the era of man. The Ikur stands as a witness to the moment when the hierarchy of the heavens was forced to bend to the reality of the earth. The final events before creation began are no longer a matter of cosmic planning, but a frantic response to a divine mutiny. The breath of life is about to be shared, but it carries with it the memory of the toil it was designed to replace. In the silence that follows the Ijiji rebellion, the first heartbeat of humanity is prepared to sound. Deep beneath the parched crust of the Mesopotamian plain, far below the reach of the sun's relentless heat, lies a realm of eternal twilight. This is the Abzu. It is not merely a place but a primordial force, a subterranean ocean of sweet, fresh water that feeds the springs and nourishes the roots of the world. In the Sumerian imagination, the Abzu is the laboratory of the cosmos. It is here, amidst the rhythmic dripping of ancient limestone and the silent flow of underground rivers, that the god Enki dwells. He is the master of wisdom, the lord of the deep, and the ultimate architect of the divine order. But now, as the rebellion of the lesser god settles into a fragile and dangerous peace, the Abzu becomes something more. It becomes the birthplace of a radical, terrifying idea. Enki moves through the chambers of his sunken palace with a heavy step. He is a god who understands the weight of necessity. Above him, the great Anunnaki sit in a council of desperation. The fields are untended. The canals are choking with silt. The very machinery of the universe, which relies on the constant labor of the gods, is grinding to a halt. The rebellion of the Ijiji has proven one thing with absolute clarity. The gods can no longer sustain the world on their own. They require a surrogate. They require a creature that possesses the stamina of the earth and the intelligence of the divine, yet remains fundamentally separate from the immortal hierarchy. The tablets tell us that Enki does not arrive at this solution lightly. He stares into the shimmering pools of the Abzu, watching the reflections of stars that do not exist in this subterranean dark. He is looking for a blueprint. He is looking for the Lulu, the primitive worker. This is the moment where theology meets genetic engineering in the ancient mind. Enki realizes that to create a being capable of serving the gods, he cannot simply mold a statue from mud. Life requires a spark. It requires a signature of the divine. The silence of the Abzu is broken by the arrival of Namu, the primeval mother who gave birth to the gods themselves. It is she who prompts Enki to find a way to relieve the gods of their toil. She speaks of the clay that lies over the abyss, a substance malleable and ancient. But Enki knows that clay alone is inert. It has no soul, no drive, and no memory. To make the clay walk and breathe, he needs a sacrifice. He needs the blood of a god. This is the hidden dark side of the creation story. The blueprints for humanity are not drawn in ink, but in the essence of a fallen deity. The council of the gods decides that one among them must be slaughtered so that his flesh and blood may be mixed with the clay of the earth. They choose a god named Wielu, a figure described as having personality or intelligence. This is a deliberate choice. The gods are not creating a mindless animal. They are creating a reflection of themselves, a being with a rational soul, but one destined to labor. In the deepest sanctum of the Abzu, Enki prepares the ritual. The atmosphere is thick with the scent of cedar and the metallic tang of divine blood. He is joined by Ninma, the great mother goddess and midwife of the heavens. Together, they stand over a massive vat of clay gathered from the very foundations of the world. This is the moment of synthesis. The narrator observes the scene as if through a veil of millennia. We see Enki's long, dexterous fingers moving through the damp earth. He is not just a potter. He is a programmer weaving the divine instructions, the me, into the physical matter of the world. The me are the fundamental laws of civilization and existence. They are the codes that govern everything from the art of weaving to the kingship itself. Enki selects specific me to implant into this new creation. He gives the creature the ability to understand commands, the dexterity to hold a shovel, and the capacity to feel hunger, for hunger will be the primary motivator for its labor. But he also leaves something out. He denies the creature the me of immortality. This new being will be finite. It will have a beginning and an end, a cycle of life that mirrors the seasons of the fields it is destined to plow. Ninma works alongside him, her hands stained with the red clay and the golden ichor of the sacrificed god. She is the one who gives the creature its form. She shapes the limbs, the torso, and the head. She breathes into its nostrils not just air, but the vital spirit of the slain Wielu. The tablets describe a process that is both biological and magical. They speak of the Enenema, the 14 womb goddesses who are summoned to assist in the gestation of the first prototypes. This is not a single act of creation but a mass production, a divine factory line set deep within the bowels of the earth. As the first figures begin to take shape, the tension in the Abzu is palpable. Will these creatures be able to stand? Will they recognize the authority of their makers? Enki watches with a mixture of pride and profound caution. He knows that by introducing a new player into the cosmic game, he is changing the rules forever. The blueprint he has designed is a hybrid. It is a bridge between the eternal world of the gods and the transient world of the animals. The documentary camera of our mind lingers on the details of the Abzu. We see the rows of clay forms resting in the damp darkness. We see the shimmering light of Enki's wisdom reflecting off the water's surface. There is a sense of immense gravity here. The Sumerians did not view their creation as an act of pure love, but as an act of desperate utility. The secret blueprint of Enki is a contract written in biology. The gods provide the world and the spark of life, and in return, the humans provide the labor that sustains the divine. Outside the Abzu, the rest of the Anunnaki wait in silence. They are hungry and tired. The rebellion has left them weakened. They look toward the ground, waiting for the first signs of the workers who will save them from their own exhaustion. They do not yet know the complexity of what Enki has fashioned. They do not yet realize that the blood of the god mixed into the clay will carry with it a spark of rebellion and a desire for transcendence that can never be fully extinguished. Enki turns to Ninmah. The first 7 males and 7 females are ready. They are the foundation of a new era. But before they are released into the world above, Enki whispers a final set of instructions into the water. These are the secrets of the Abzu, the hidden laws of human nature. He programs into them the fear of the gods, the necessity of the ritual, and the structure of the family. He ensures that they will propagate, ensuring a steady supply of workers for the generations to come. The blueprint is complete. The Abzu, once a place of quiet contemplation and the source of life-giving water, has become the forge of humanity. The transition from the age of gods to the age of men is about to begin. The rhythmic dripping of the water in the cave sounds like a countdown. Each drop marks the passage of the final moments of the old world. Enki stands back, looking at his handiwork. He sees the vulnerability of these new beings, their soft skin and their short lives. He also sees their potential. In this moment, the Abzu is the center of the universe. All the cosmic forces that have been clashing since the beginning of time are focused into these small, clay-bound spirits. The secret blueprint is no longer a plan. It is a reality. The whispers of Enki have become the heartbeat of a new species. The gods above prepare to receive their servants, unaware that the creature they have commissioned carries within it the very essence of the divine mind that designed it. As the segment draws to a close, the camera pulls back from the depths of the Abzu. We rise through the layers of rock and soil, moving toward the light of the Mesopotamian sun. The subterranean silence gives way to the distant sound of the wind across the marshlands. The blueprint has been signed. The materials have been mixed. The first shadows of the human form are about to emerge from the darkness of the earth into the blinding light of history. The great experiment of the Anunnaki is ready to be unleashed upon the world, and nothing will ever be the same again. Deep within the cavernous halls of the house of Shimei, the air is thick with the scent of damp earth and the sharp, metallic tang of ozone. This is the place of destiny, a celestial laboratory where the boundary between the divine and the material is about to vanish. The great god Enki, the master of wisdom and the lord of the sweet waters, stands at the center of the chamber. Beside him is Nintu, the mother goddess, her hands already stained with the red silt of the Abzu. Outside these walls, the rebellion of the lesser gods, the Ijiji, has ceased, but only because a terrifying promise has been made. To release the gods from their backbreaking labor, a new being must be brought into existence. This being must possess the strength to work the earth and the intelligence to serve the temples. It must be something that has never existed before, a bridge between the eternal and the mortal. The tablets of the Atrahasis and the Enuma Elish describe this moment not as a gentle act of pottery, but as a visceral, almost surgical procedure. The cost of life is death. To create a soul must be surrendered. The assembly of the Anunnaki has gathered in a somber circle, their golden radiance dimmed by the gravity of the coming sacrifice. They have chosen a victim from among their own ranks. In some accounts, it is Weila, a god who possessed rationality and a rebellious spirit. In others, it is Kingu, the general of Tiamat's monstrous army. Regardless of the name, the requirement is the same. A god must be slaughtered. Their blood must be spilled to temper the clay of the earth. Enki gives the signal. The chosen deity is led to the center of the hall. There is no recorded struggle, only the heavy silence of a cosmic necessity being fulfilled. The throat of the god is cut, and the divine ichor, the substance of immortality, flows into a great bronze basin. This is the first ingredient of humanity. It is not merely biological matter. It is the essence of divinity containing the memories, the intellect, and the fire of the heavens. But blood alone is too volatile, too ethereal to exist in the physical realm of the four corners of the world. It requires a vessel. Nintu reaches into the sacred waters and pulls forth the clay. This is the substance of the earth itself, the heavy, stubborn muck of the Mesopotamian riverbeds. It represents the physical constraints of reality, the gravity that binds all things, and the decay that eventually claims all matter. She begins to knead the clay, mixing it with the warm blood of the sacrificed god. The imagery is profound and unsettling. The tablets describe a process of purification and blending that mirrors the way ancient potters prepared their materials, yet the scale is universal. As Ninta works the mixture, the gods watch in a state of primal awe. They are witnessing the birth of their own replacement. Enki speaks the incantations. He is the master of the holy word, and his voice vibrates through the chamber, setting the molecules of the clay into a specific resonance. He commands that the ghost of the slain god remain within the mixture. This is a crucial detail found in the cuneiform text. The tablets explain that the blood provides the tiimu, a word often translated as intelligence or personality, while the flesh provides the etimo, or the ghost. This ensures that even though the god is dead, a part of its consciousness will forever endure within the new creature. This is the Sumerian explanation for the human soul. It is the lingering echo of a murdered god, forever trapped in a cage of earth. The process now moves into a phase of rhythmic industrial precision. Nintu is not alone in her task. She calls upon 14 birth goddesses, 7 to the left and 7 to the right. This is the divine assembly line of creation. Enki treads the clay, a ritualistic dance that infuses the matter with his own power. He then hands the prepared substance to Nintu. She takes the clay and divides it into 14 distinct pinches. 7 pieces are designated to become males, and 7 are to become females. This is the blueprint of the human race, established in a single moment of biological and spiritual engineering. The goddesses wait. The tablets describe a period of gestation that mirrors the human term, but it takes place within the ritual space of the house of Shimiti. There is a sense of agonizing anticipation. Will the experiment hold? Will the divine blood be rejected by the clay? The gods have staked their entire future on this endeavor. If it fails, the rebellion of the Igigi will resume, and the cosmos will slide back into the chaos of war. Suddenly, the silence is broken by a sound that has never been heard in the universe before. It is the cry of the infant. But it is not just one voice, it is 14. The birth goddesses have completed their task. The clay has been transformed into flesh. The blood has become a pulse. The first humans, the Lulu, have opened their eyes. They are described as primitive workers, but they are also described as being made in the image of the gods. They possess the same limbs, the same facial features, and the same capacity for thought as their creators. The only difference is the limit of their years. The gods have withheld the gift of eternal life, ensuring that while the human spirit is divine, the human body remains a debt that must eventually be paid back to the earth. The Anunnaki look upon their creation with a mixture of relief and trepidation. They see beings that look like them, talk like them, and move like them. Enki has succeeded in his gamble. The burden of labor can now be shifted. The shovels and the baskets are placed into the hands of the Lulu. The gods who once groaned under the heat of the sun now retire to their temples, satisfied that their comfort is secured. But the tablets suggest a subtle tension beneath the surface of this victory. By using the blood of a rebellious god, Enki has inadvertently planted the seeds of rebellion within humanity itself. The narrator observes the scene as the first humans are led out of the workshop and into the bright, harsh light of the Mesopotamian sun. They are given the tools of civilization, the plow, the brick mold, and the yoke. They are taught how to dig the canals that will bring life to the desert and how to build the towering ziggurats that will reach toward the homes of their masters. It is a moment of profound transformation for the planet. The wilderness is being tamed, not by the hands of the immortal gods, but by the sweat of a creature born from a crime. As the first generation of humans begins to multiply, the documentary gaze shifts to the complexity of their nature. They are not merely biological machines. Because they carry the blood of a god, they possess an inherent desire for meaning, for art, and for power. They look at the stars and feel a strange sense of belonging, a recognition of the celestial heights from which their spiritual essence was drawn. Yet, they also feel the pull of the mud beneath their feet, the constant reminder of their mortality and their subservience. The tablets reveal that this balance was intentional. The gods did not want a creature that was too intelligent, lest it challenge their authority. Nor did they want one that was too dim-witted, as it would be unable to perform the complex tasks required of it. Humanity was designed to exist in the middle ground, a perfect servant that is just divine enough to be useful but just mortal enough to be controlled. This is the Sumerian origin of the human condition, a state of perpetual duality, a struggle between the clay of our bodies and the blood of our souls. The scene in the house of Shimei fades as the new workers fill the valleys of the Tigris and Euphrates. The sound of their tools echoes across the plains, a rhythmic thumping that replaces the silence of the primordial world. The great experiment has moved from the laboratory to the landscape. Cities begin to rise from the dust, constructed of the very clay from which the people themselves were formed. The gods watch from their high places, marveling at how quickly their creations have organized the world. However, the peace is fragile. The blood of the sacrificed god is not silent. It carries with it the memory of the betrayal and the execution that took place in the divine halls. As the human population grows, so too does a certain restlessness. The Timu, that divine spark of intelligence, begins to manifest in ways the gods did not entirely anticipate. Humans begin to talk, to sing, and to complain. They begin to create their own stories and their own desires. The very noise that the Igigi once made while working the earth is now being amplified 10,000 times by the voices of the human race. The camera of the mind pans out, showing the sprawling irrigation networks and the smoke rising from the first hearts of the first cities. We see the faces of these early humans, marked by the same passions and sorrows that define our own lives. They are our ancestors, but they are also the products of a cosmic compromise. They are the forged life, the alloy of heaven and earth. The gods have found their rest, but the world has become a noisy, crowded place. The final events before the true beginning of history have concluded, and the era of man has begun. But as the tablets warn, the gods are fickle, and the peace they have bought with the blood of their brother may not last as long as they hope. The foundation of civilization has been laid in chaos, and the echoes of that ancient rebellion still vibrate in every human heart. The horizon of the southern marshes is a blur of heat and silver water. Here, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers begin to lose their definition and dissolve into the Persian Gulf, the world of the ancient Sumerians takes its first solid shape. This is the dawn of the historical consciousness, a moment when the wild, unformed energies of the cosmos are funneled into the narrow streets of the first city. The silence of the primordial age is broken by the sound of reed cutters and the rhythmic slapping of waves against mud brick foundations. At the center of this transformation stands Eridu. In the Sumerian king list, it is written that when kingship lowered from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. This is not merely a political statement but a theological anchor. To the ancients, Eridu is the place where the world truly began to function as a civilized entity. It is the site where the gods first established a permanent residence among men, and it is here that the great god Enki, the lord of the earth and master of the sweet waters, builds his home. He calls it the Yabzu, the house of the deep. It sits atop the Abzu, that hidden subterranean ocean of fresh water that nourishes the roots of the world. But the creation of a city requires more than just bricks and water. It requires the blueprints of civilization itself, the divine decrees known as the Me. These are the fundamental laws of existence, governing everything from the art of writing and the craft of the blacksmith to the rituals of the priesthood and the concept of truth. The gods possess these powers, but they are too vast and too distant to teach them directly to a fledgling humanity. A bridge is needed between the divine realm of the Abzu and the dusty plains of Sumer. That bridge arrives in the form of the 7 sages, known in the tablets as the Apkallu. The tide pulls back from the shore of the Persian Gulf, revealing 7 figures emerging from the churning brine. They do not look like men, nor do they look entirely like animals. They are the fishmen, creatures of dual nature. Their bodies are covered in the shimmering scales of the great carp, but beneath these aquatic cloaks, they possess human limbs and voices. They are the emissaries of Enki, sent from the depths of the Abzu to bring the light of order to a chaotic world. The first and most prominent of these sages is Adapa, also known as Wana. He is described as a man of extraordinary wisdom, a priest of Eridu who spends his days tending to the sanctuary of Enki. It is Adapa who provides the city with its first taste of structure. He learns the secrets of the stars to track the seasons. He masters the art of baking bread and the brewing of beer, turning the raw products of the earth into the staples of the city. He is the first to use the stylus to mark clay, capturing the fleeting thoughts of the mind and making them permanent. As Adapa walks through the rising streets of Eridu, the other 6 sages follow, each bringing a specific facet of the me to the people. They move with a strange, fluid grace, their fish-skin robes glistening under the Mesopotamian sun. They are Uanejiga and Meduga, and Megalama and Mebulaga, and Enlilda and Utuabsu. To the modern observer, these names are a difficult chorus of ancient phonemes, but to the Sumerians they are the architects of the human soul. The sages do not just build structures, they build the very concept of the state. They teach the inhabitants of Eridu how to dig canals, transforming the chaotic floods of the rivers into a disciplined network of irrigation. This allows the marshlands to be drained and the desert to bloom. With the surplus of grain comes the birth of hierarchy. The sages instruct the people on the roles of the king and the priest, the scribe and the soldier. They explain that the city is a reflection of the heavenly court, a microcosm where every human action must align with the divine will to prevent the world from sliding back into the abyss. Inside the Iabzu, the temple of Enki, the atmosphere is thick with the scent of burning cedar and the damp coolness of the subterranean springs. The sages gather here to consult with their master. Enki sits upon his throne of lapis lazuli, surrounded by the swirling waters of the deep. He is the god who prefers persuasion to force and wisdom to war. He watches as Eridu grows from a small cluster of reed huts into a sprawling metropolis of sun-dried brick. The temple itself is a marvel, built and rebuilt over generations, each layer of brick sinking into the mud to form a massive platform that raises the sanctuary toward the sky. The presence of the Apkallu ensures that the city is not just a place of survival, but a center of ritual. They teach the people that the gods must be fed and clothed through constant service. This is the great work. The sages reveal the specific songs that must be sung to appease the storm and the precise gestures required to ensure the fertility of the date palms. They are the custodians of the sacred calendar, marking the points where the veil between the physical world and the spiritual world is thinnest. However, the wisdom of the sages is a heavy burden. Adapa, despite his brilliance, is immortal. The tablets tell of a moment when the south wind capsizes his fishing boat, and in a fit of divine rage, Adapa breaks the wing of the wind. This act of defiance summons him to the highest heaven to answer to Anu, the father of the gods. Enki, ever the strategist, warns Adapa not to eat the food or drink the water offered to him in heaven, claiming it is the bread and water of death. When Adapa stands before Anu, his wisdom impresses the sky god so deeply that Anu offers him the bread and water of immortality. Remembering Enki's warning, Adapa refuses. Anu laughs in sorrow and tells the sage that he has rejected the gift of eternal life. Adapa returns to Eridu, and with him, the realization that while humanity can possess the wisdom of the gods, they can never possess their longevity. This mortality becomes the defining characteristic of the Sumerian spirit, a drive to build great monuments and write lasting words because the time allotted to any one person is so brief. As Eridu flourishes, the influence of the 7 sages spreads outward like ripples in a pond. The knowledge they planted in the mud of the south begins to take root in other settlements like Uruk, Uar, and Nippur. But Eridu remains the spiritual heart, the place where the transition from the pre-creation chaos to the ordered world was first successfully managed. The city becomes a living organism. In the marketplaces, traders from distant lands exchange obsidian and timber for the textiles and grain of Sumer. In the schools, young scribes labor over their tablets, repeating the lessons first spoken by the fishmen. The Apkallu eventually retreat back into the waters of the Abzu, their mission complete, but they leave behind a world that is fundamentally changed. They have transformed the human being from a creature of instinct into a creature of culture. This era of the seven sages represents the final stage of the creation process. The heavens have been separated from the earth, the great gods have claimed their domains, and the rebellion of the lesser deities has been quelled by the creation of humanity. Now, through the work of the Apkallu and Eridu, the purpose of that creation is realized. Humans are no longer just laborers for the gods. They are the stewards of the divine order on earth. The architecture of Eridu stands as a testament to this new reality. The ziggurat rises, a man-made mountain of brick that serves as a staircase for the gods to descend and for prayers to ascend. Below the city, the fresh waters of Enki continue to flow, a reminder that all civilization rests upon a hidden, ancient source of life. The tablets remind us that before the first king ever wore a crown and before the first army ever marched to war, there was a time of pure instruction, a time when the sages walked among men and the secrets of the universe were as clear as the water of a mountain spring. As the sun sets over the ruins of what was once the most sacred spot on earth, the echoes of Eridu remain. The city eventually fell into decay, its temples buried by the shifting sands of the desert, but the template it provided for human life never truly vanished. The laws, the writing, the measurements, and the very idea of the city itself all trace their lineage back to those first days on the edge of the marshes. The transition is complete. The stage is set for the rise of empires and the long, turbulent history of the human race. The world has been built, the me have been delivered, and the silence of the beginning has been replaced by the roar of civilization.